Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Going through the year-end type stuff and getting some feedback where I think we tried this before, and I'm at fault, I'll say off the bat, where we've had people reach out because on Spotify, whatever I name the show really isn't the first topic we talk about, and that's because I name the show after we record. And if I use like an AI like transcript analyzer to see what we talked about the most, I've been just grabbing that. And so people are wondering, like, I guess they're bouncing. They're only listening to a little bit. They expect us to talk about the big topic first, and we don't, because I normally do NFL and college. So I'm going to kind of shift it. And I think I tried this before, and I just keep forgetting to do it. But I'm going to take the feedback not even into consideration. We're just going to do it because I understand. A lot of people, they find the show for the first time. We're getting downloads from all over the world, which is crazy. Not even consistently, because I had some of the older podcasts, like when I was first starting out, I tried a couple different topics, and those ones had different download locations, which was kind of surprising to me. Like, even when we hit the charts, like in France, that wasn't even one of our top locations on the year-end wrap-up. So, pretty diverse. So I'm excited about that. But we're going to get right into it. The big topic, I know I've had a ton of questions about it. It's been everywhere. The Sherrone Moore firing. And it was even on like international news, Matt. And I know I'm probably following it more than what you have. And it's not even, I haven't even been trying to keep up with it, because there's been a lot of, like, I don't even want to say negativity. It's just been a lot of, like, rumors and rehashing stuff from the Jim Harbaugh saga. So I'll just start by saying, I can't remember if we talked about it on the show, but there were rumors that the Michigan coaching job was going to open up, and I knew it before Michigan played Ohio State. And surprisingly enough, I was hearing it from some people that were Penn State fans, right? That were plugged in. They're reading all the Penn State news, listening to all the Penn State podcasts on who they're going to get for a coach. Because if you remember, they didn't have a coach, I think, before Thanksgiving, right? I don't remember the timeline exactly. But before Penn State had made their hire, I was told by Penn State people that they were having trouble getting people to lock in, coaches to lock in, because they had heard that the Michigan coaching job was going to open. All right. That doesn't mean there's a conspiracy on the Michigan side of things. And I'll tell you why. Because for those of you that haven't worked in a school district or even a university, things move very slow. Very slow. It's different than like a private job where you can just call the guy in and fire him.
Unless they want the move to happen.
Well,
when
go ahead.
Administration wants to make a move, they can move relatively quickly. But the traditional chain of how things work in schools is that they want to go the path of least resistance. A lot of times, by the time people hit admin levels, and whether you're talking high school or college, they're trying to just essentially ride out the last couple of years, pad their retirement, and ride off into the sunset. So, like, for any admin to really move aggressively, they're not only putting their own professional future at risk, but they also have to make sure that they're going to be able to handle any of the blowback. So, keeping that in mind as you go forward, like, for them to move as quickly as what they did, they had to have already had a decent bit of back information and preparatory things.
And I'm not even trying to add on here or make it like, I'm not like defending Michigan. I'm just bringing up the process, because my example is going to be Brian Kelly at LSU, right? If you remember, they took his keys, they turned it off. You're right. The administration wanted to make a move. They made a move. They didn't go through the proper channels, and they tried to fire him for cause. They were denied. And so they have to pay his full buyout. And I think Michigan here, and this is even if you trust the insiders, which I haven't trusted them all the way back when I was a student, right? I told you, this is years and years ago, that we were going to hire Harbaugh because at one of the pregame donor alumni things I was at, they were saying that he's locked in. If the Niners get rid of him, we're hiring Harbaugh. And then at the game, I started the hire Harbaugh chant. Like, that wasn't just something I made up on a whim, right? It's like, you can actually, I'm not there, so I don't talk to, like, I wasn't talking to anyone about the Sherrone Moore thing. Hearing it from the Penn State side kind of shocked me, because that means that if you're firing your coach, $1 million coach in college football, every year, the administrator, the athletic director, it's going to be their job to keep a list of contacts open. That's why you see like an AD that formerly worked to a coach, he moves to a new school, and then they're friends with an old coach, they'll bring that coach in. It's because it's not really like a safety or like a friend or nepotism type thing. They want to succeed, right? The athletic director works or looks the best if their programs are winning. So if the athletic director knows a couple of coaches that they've been successful with in the past, they're going to try to bring them with them. Same with like a head coach bringing his assistant coaches over, like Lane Kiffin leaving. Like, that was no open secret where he was telling Ole Miss, like, no, I'm listening to jobs here, guys. And then they're like, okay. Well, he's like, I might not take it, though. Here's a picture of my family at Thanksgiving with everything out of my house. It's like, are you buying a new house, dude? Like, no, are you moving? And then he announces that he's moving. Like, okay, we got it. And with the Michigan thing, I guess it's been confirmed now that they were investigating him. The rival news was that it was going to be, and this is going back, because I kept hearing about how Sherrone Moore was going to get fired. This is going all the way back to last year, which apparently some people knew that he was having an inappropriate relationship all the way back then. How the rivals knew? It looks like one of our regents was texting them, which is insane. And the way I think the law is set up, you can only be a regent if you live in Michigan and they elect you. So it's like an elected position. So if the guy actively hates Michigan and he's undermining one of the Detroit's reporters, I don't know if you've seen this, he leaked a bunch of texts where the guy was actively trying to get other regents to help fire Harbaugh in 2020, like around the COVID year. And I had told you, like, it seems like he's getting no support from the university. Like, no, confirmed. And it confirmed that the regents were the one that slow rolled his extension when he finally went to the NFL. So for all the people saying like Harbaugh, no, he wasn't pushed out. Yeah, it seems like he was. The regents didn't want him around. They pushed him out. The one guy joked about actively shopping him around to NFL contacts to see if they would hire him in these leaked texts, which is insane. So the news coming out, this is like a couple years ago, that like Sherrone Moore wasn't going to last as coach. There's something coming out. It could be big. That could lead to more sanctions. I almost wonder if the sanctions thing was kind of like a carrot, right? Where if you give it to the rivals and they say that there could be sanctions involved, they're going to push it. I don't see how Michigan could have any sanctions over the coach having an inappropriate relationship with the staffer and then getting fired. Right? How are you going to say like, nah, the team was so much better coach. Coach was locked in, baby, after those dates, right?
Some people are more locked in.
A benefit. No, they said he was texting people during the game. Could you imagine? We went 9-3, dude. How many coaches can't even win? Like Matt Rule, has he ever won 9 games? Did they win 9 this year? He better be having some relationships on the side. How can you be that bad when some guy's like only half dedicated to the job and half dedicated to his side escapades? Where he's like, yo, come on a good game. Come on out to the hotel after. This is where I'm staying. Yeah, bruh. And then I saw like one of the models came out and was like, I didn't leak that to the press. My assistant that does my messages did. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't say the texts were fake, right? Just saying like it wasn't you. Didn't make me feel any better. But I guess a lot of people might not even know the story. I mean, it's at national news, but I'll just recap it here. Basically, Michigan investigated Sherrone Moore for an inappropriate relationship with his executive assistant. the scrutiny came under from a lot of people now looking at a raise that she had gotten. I don't know if it was this year or last year, where it like almost doubled her salary. I'll go on the administrative side again here, where if the university looked at it and people were saying, how did she get a raise that large? I know from experience, if someone working in no matter how big the raise is and how slow the system is to give a raise, if she had a job offer from another university or another, I think her dad was a scout with the Bears or something. If a pro team came in and said, hey, we're going to hire her for X amount, the university has something built in where they can match that. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just giving one realistic example where Sherrone Moore just didn't give her a random raise. And then all the assistant or all the admins were like, oh, that's his girlfriend. Yeah, just write that right through. Right? Because it seemed like they were trying to get him and her to kind of confess to the relationship, and that might have been why he might have been, because they were saying that he could have been fired last year. Then he beats Ohio State, then he beats Alabama, and I'm like, they're not going to fire him. And even this year, I told you, like, they're not going to fire him if we lose to Ohio State, or even if we beat Ohio State, like, they're not going to fire him. But I still think that no matter what happened in the Ohio State game, if she came clean and had the proof, they're gonna make the move no matter what. We could be on the playoffs right now, and I think he still would have been fired for cause, and it would have been Biff's season in the playoffs, right? Because what else are you gonna do? If the only change of events is they said last Monday she came out and told the university that she had lied in their investigation. Now, what was her reasoning? I don't know. I also saw the regents were leaking that Ward Manuel had fired him without anyone else present or whatever, like no formal warning. I don't trust the regents right now. So I'm waiting to see what happens there, because I know you were saying you heard that he was going to get fired. I had heard kind of same thing, and then they did then he met and they didn't fire him. If it's one regent leaking things that wants it to happen, and he can't get the other ones to sign off, then it just seems like you have one guy that's a jerk undermining everything. We knew there was someone undermining Harbaugh. Now you have someone undermining Sherrone, undermining Ward. What Sherrone did, I'm not defending it. Like, he made a dumb decision. I don't think anyone can argue that. He knew the rules. It's a rule everywhere. You can't be in a position of power and start dating one of your employees. I mean, they teach you that he's making millions of dollars. If he would have had a mistress with was somewhere else, like a different university or something, I don't think anyone would have said anything like that. You can't fire him for that. I mean, it was very hard for them to obviously fire him for cause. It probably took them months to gather evidence, and they still couldn't prove it until she came through with her evidence. And so, I mean, could you imagine because I think one of the recruits came out and said that he had asked because he heard that Sherrone was under investigation, and the university told him, yes, he was. And so the recruit kind of just thought maybe it was still the NCAA thing, which, remember, he deleted his texts, right, during the sign stealing thing. Everyone thought he was guilty of sign stealing. I defended him, saying they recovered the text and he was cleared. What about the other texts that he deleted? Right? They recovered the Stallions ones. Maybe he deleted them because he knew he was having an inappropriate affair. And when they recovered it, did they recover all the text chains with all the staff? Or were they really only zeroed in on the Stallions thing? Because that could have been interfering with the regular investigation into his inappropriate relationship, deleting his texts, and they have no proof or whatever. I mean, what's the university supposed to do? It's just a terrible situation. And we saw it happen with Petrino. Heck, we saw it happen with is it Golden, the Florida's basketball coach. Almost the exact same thing, except he was harassing students, other people that had reported him, and then when the police tried to investigate it, they didn't cooperate or whatever, and then that was it. They couldn't do anything. He won the national championship last year. right? Do you think they're really still looking into it after he won? Like, so anyone that's throwing stones, like especially like a Florida fan making fun of the Sherrone thing, it's like, dude, your coach did the exact same thing, except we actually did the right thing and fired ours, right? What else do you want to happen? Do you want him to go on like a shame thing, like Game of Thrones? He like walks down the street, everyone's shaming him. I bet people would like that. And I don't even know. I feel bad for his wife. She like bailed him out or whatever. They were seen together. She went to the hearing. Maybe I don't know, it was a divorce thing. Who knows? But him having his meltdown after, just another case of like poor judgment, because that's the entire thing that made it crazy, right? Where he grabbed knives and went and broke into the mistress's house and tried to attack her. And he went to the tub and was going to kill himself, which I don't even know if that's the right order. It seemed like every report I read was like a different order of what happened. And even at his trial, I saw a recap where I think the prosecutor said that like he had she broke up with him on Monday and that's what caused it. But it seemed like it was the opposite, where she had said in her statement later that she broke up with him like last year and he's been stalking her. And so finally the season wraps up, right? Signing day wraps up. He probably has free time. Something happened where if he was stalking her, it got too extreme on that Monday where she took it to the university instead. He wouldn't stop. Which at that point, poor decision making. And people were saying like he wasn't prepared for games. He was always like his mind was elsewhere. Now we know you can't. It's hard to be focused when you're looking over your shoulder, hoping that they showed that one where they went to see. Were they watching a national championship thing? They were watching some other sport playing something, and it was him and his assistant, and they were standing like a good bit apart, and they just looked uncomfortable. And you could just tell that he did not want to be there with her. Right? Whether it was just in public or what. And that's another thing too. People are now sending pictures of like, here they are together. Yeah, it's his assistant, right? That's why they were able to get away with it. They're supposed to be together. That's what an assistant does. People were like, I cracked the case, man. Here's a picture of them walking across campus. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed, man? So it's crazy. I feel bad for his family. I really do. I mean, his meltdown could have went worse, right? At least he didn't like get into a shootout with the cops or something. And that would have been a horrible way to like find out you're getting a new coach. If he's like gets into an attack, like luckily he didn't hurt anybody. He looked like he was just destroyed, looked like a totally different person when he was in jail or the holding cell, wherever they had him. And that decision after the firing, I mean, that could end his career. If he had just been fired, came out and did a press release and said something like, I made a mistake. I'm going to go into counseling. You know, I want to spend time with my family. I hope they find it in their hearts to forgive me. I'm going to take some time off football, and then I'm going to come back and change man, be a football coach, something like that. That's all he had to do. Instead, because like he could have been an assistant coach. He's not going to have like an assistant to the assistant coach, right? Or to like the offensive line coach, right? So now he's like, what? They're going to be almost unhireable because he's going to be seen as going crazy.
Yeah.
Because like Petrino did that press conference, right? He had the neck brace on. And he's back. Right? He came back. It's hard to come back whenever. That's why I don't even think it's just like I've said before. I think coaches, not even just coaches, but like the players, they need to have some type of counseling, like legal counseling or just like a life coach. Someone giving them good advice. I think for too many times these athletes or whatever coaches, you're making millions of dollars, you're going through. I keep seeing things about like Michigan coaches, like, yeah, look, he's like the ninth coach getting arrested or something like that. And most of the other coaches were just getting DUIs. Is it dumb? Yeah, they're getting paid millions of dollars or whatever. Why are they not calling an Uber? Right? That wraps up most of the arrests other than the computer one and then the Sherrone one. Which, I mean, again, if he just took time to call his like lawyer or something, where they could have got him some help before he went crazy at the end, this probably wouldn't even have been in the news. I have people that I don't even know are sports fans coming up to me and saying, man, I heard the sad news about your team. Like, that's rough. I hope he's okay. Which is kind of weird, right? Because normally in sports, you're like getting a trash talk. Like, yeah, your coach went crazy. But now people realize how scary that situation was. Right? So I honestly I've had people come up that I didn't even know watch sports. And then maybe they don't watch sports, but they knew about the coach having like an episode. And I even had one guy, a Michigan guy, come up and said, hey, he's like, I saw you wearing your sweatshirt. He's like, I had my Michigan hat I normally wear out, and I left it at home. He's like, I was afraid people were going to be negative towards it. I was like, I wouldn't stop wearing it just because coach went crazy, right? I mean, like, it's a weird thing. If someone's that invested into their rival where the other coach gets arrested and you're like laughing at them. I mean, we joked about like the Hartline thing. Like Ohio State had Brian Hartline wreck driving drunk his side-by-side or whatever. He could have been killed doing that. Any of the DUIs Michigan had could have been killed. And it's the same thing we call about the Georgia. Those are players. Those are kids, right? If I had to pick, I'd rather have the coaches make the DUIs, right? If other than the kids and the players. But in both scenarios, you're hoping that they're adults. They're not making those bad decisions anyway. So maybe Michigan does need to clean house. I keep hearing about, well, they can bring in someone from Harbaugh's tree and he can keep a lot of the assistants and keep things rolling. Nah. But what? Keep it rolling with what? We haven't made the playoffs for 2 years. Harbaugh took most of his good assistants to the NFL. And I always wonder, like, he definitely left Sherrone behind. He didn't like name him as a pure coach in waiting. So was that just a thing? The continuity thing didn't work out. I mean, in the Bizarro world, next year, it depends on what Bryce Underwood does. If he makes a huge jump, even with Sherrone half there, he went 9-3 this year. Bryce did. Next year, he makes some more plays. Michigan could easily be 11-1. I know they have a tougher schedule. They could have been 7-5 next year, and Sherrone gets fired anyway. We'll never know. So now, off the sad thing, like I said, I hope Sherrone gets help. I hope his family is okay. And I hope he realizes that, man, he made a mistake. If he would have just took a deep breath and tried to get some help beforehand, I think if Michigan's athletic director fired him without counsel or whatever, like they're leaking, I think he would have been fired already. It's been like a week. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason, like, if you took all the time to find cause for Sherrone, you would have found cause about other ones. I honestly think that they went through the process, knowing how the process works and being through those type of things, hirings and firings before, just in a professional setting. He probably knew, had a heads up, but he probably went home. I mean, you have to tell your family, right?
But the one thing that I've thought about this, like, if I'm coaching at that level, I would like to think that I'm already having, like, I'm talking to my agent. Hopefully my agent is providing solid representation of, like, just going over stuff that's going to potentially cause issues. So that even if, you do something similar to what he's doing outside, like having these relationships outside of his marriage or what have you, like that he's getting that somebody in his close inner circle would have been like, hey, when you get caught, because they always end up getting caught, like it's going to blow back immensely. Like, are you ready for the fallout of when that happened? Because I think he wasn't ready for it. And then is all that, like, I've never seen a scenario where he's gone from coaching against Ohio State with like major bowl ramifications on the line to being in that safety cube, like, awaiting his trial. Like, it went from 0 to 1,000,000 so fast.
I mean, there's a realistic situation where if Michigan beats Ohio State, Miami gets left out and Michigan's in instead because they have the best win. Even though Ohio State didn't win the Big Ten, that's most likely what would have happened. The ACC would have lost their bid to Tulane or whatever, and that's all everyone would have been talking about. And it would have been, all right, next thing. Instead, yeah, you're right. He gets that, and I was trying to think like the timeline for him. It might have just been like you said, if people at Penn State had heard that the job was opening up because of an investigation, and I mean everyone's thinking it's related to his appeal with the NCAA or whatever. Like, no, he had a different investigation that came out. His agent would have to have known that, because his agent would have heard from other people saying like, hey, we hear the job's going to open up. What's going on? What's the investigation? And unless Sherrone lied to him, which you don't want to lie to your agent, right? It's like your lawyer. And yeah, you're right. You would think that, hey, if anything happens, come talk to me first. Don't talk to anybody. I mean, he was driving his car around town. And that's why the fishy thing was, they said like they conveniently located him with GPS tracking. And it's like, was he like driving all around? Like they said he was like trying to set up dates on recruiting trips and things that they had been gathering evidence of. But because like that's not against university policy, like they couldn't really do anything. Like it really took the subordinate reporting it. And maybe he went to try to talk her out of it, because if she would have recanted, then what? Could they have been able to fire him? I mean, she already gave the statement. And it probably like it sounded like they took 2 days. Like she went in Monday. They probably had the university lawyers look at everything on Tuesday. Wasn't he fired on Wednesday? Yeah, it was a day after our show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he would have been, that would have been 2 days for them to get everything legally in place to fire for cause. And I mean, at that point, he could have just came in and then he seems like he went right home to tell his wife. And if she didn't know, that could have been a giant fight that set everything off. You never know. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. We've spent like half the show on it. Hopefully he gets help. Now we can get into something more positive, because I missed out on this last time, dude. Now it's my time. We finally get a coaching search at Michigan. We haven't had one. I was super pumped. I was involved with the Harbaugh one. That one seemed like it was very confident for me. I know there were a lot of other coaches thrown out like at weird times, like Shiano's going to be the guy, and people were like, no, we really don't want that guy. I was locked in 100%. We're getting Harbaugh. I know it. The Niners owner and him are fighting publicly. There's no way like he's not going to accept it once they fire him. And that's exactly what happened. They fired him. The Niners kind of bounced back though. Almost won a Super Bowl. Harbaugh came here, finally won a national championship, and then went back to the NFL. Wish the Regents would have been behind him. Maybe he could have been a lifer here, won a couple more national championships. Now he's back with the Chargers doing well. But when Sherrone was hired, I think I looked it up, it was only like 4 days or something after. And that's the one thing I want to talk about. The coaching timeline. Penn State, I think, they fired Franklin so early. Everyone was like, oh, great. They can get in there first. They can find their coach. If you're hiring in the season, I think you're excluding a bunch of the best coaches, aren't you? The guys that are really in the playoff hunt. Unless the guy's a real jerk like Lane Kiffin that's going to just abandon his team before the playoffs. What guy are you going to get that has a playoff coaching feel? Right?
Yeah.
I keep hearing about how Michigan's timing right now is horrible. And honestly, I think it might work out better this way. And that's why I think Ohio State fans have been like loud saying like we manipulated it. We made the Misters come out after signing day, right? Like, oh yeah, you had to wait until after. Maybe it works out better now because you went through the bowl season. That's already started. So now any coach that's coaching in a bowl game that was waiting to interview, they're available now. Like Jed Fish at Washington, I've heard, by the way, that they hired an outside firm to help coach or do the coaching search. They have 3 recommendations. I've heard that Jed Fish is not one of them. He's from the Harbaugh tree. He's at Washington. Could have been a great coach. I was surprised whenever they didn't really interview him at Penn State or Florida. And I don't know what could be, like, if they're using a coaching firm, why would they exclude him? He has NFL experience. He seems like a good guy. Hasn't been at a program, like, hasn't really recruited the top. But if you're having, like, a program like Florida where you're telling him, like, hey, and I think he graduated from Florida, which is what stood out to me. Like, he has success. If you can get the NIL behind him like Florida has, he's never had that much talent. He won at Arizona, won at Washington. Why not win at Florida, right? So for whatever reason, other programs, Washington didn't have a problem hiring him, but other programs seemingly have said no. And maybe I'll go back and maybe Michigan will hire him and that will be that. Who knows? But the way the hiring cycle was, like with Penn State, he was actively in. I don't know when Penn State, when they fired him, Washington was still in the hunt. At one point, their only loss was to Ohio State until they lost to Michigan. And then they were kind of in the rankings, and then they got upset by Wisconsin, which to me was like the only horrible loss that they had on their schedule. If they would have been able to win that game and finish like 10-2 or whatever, they killed Boise State in the bowl game. I don't remember what their final record was, but that's the one thing. If you have a coach that's successful in winning bowl games, now they're available, where before you have to steal them from like a lower conference, like a non-power 4, whatever they call them. Like Tulane's coach, was it JMU? Their coach is gone now. I think UCLA hired him. So maybe if you think you can, if you're fine with going for a lower level coach, which the benefits for that are like Sherrone, the buyout's low. So even if Michigan wouldn't have been able to fire him for cause, they could have afforded his buyout. It's pretty low. If you hire a big name coach like Lane Kiffin, LSU right now, if they would have to fire him, they're going to be screwed like they were for Brian Kelly, which is why I'm shocked that they made the hire. Not going to lie. Because again, Lane never won a Power 4 conference title. Ever. He coached at USC. How is that even possible? Right? His only success has been at FAU. LSU did the same exact thing when they hired Brian Kelly. Seemed like it was going to be, oh man, he's won at Notre Dame. They have a lot of like things in place to make it tough to win there. Anyone can win at LSU. Let's bring him in. We don't know if Lane's going to win there. And they're willing to spend a ton of money to try to get a buyout against it. Penn State, bringing in Matt Campbell, a guy that you're going to have to pay a ton of money for. When at that point in your search, why not go for someone lower? You're taking the same guess that LSU did with Brian Kelly. Okay, he's won at Iowa State. I don't know if he's won the conference. Maybe one time. He's always been close, but people always say, oh, it's because he's coaching at Iowa State. Once he gets another job, and you can point it like a Gene Chizik. Jump from Iowa State, win one national championship at Auburn. If Penn State would win one national championship and then go 5-7 the next year, I don't think they would care at all. Right? They want the national championship. That's the difference between Franklin. They wanted a guy that has a chance to. They figured Franklin's ceiling was like 11-2 or whatever he kept getting. That was the peak with him, even though he made it to a semifinals game finally. They think Campbell can get them one national championship, which is hard. Like even undefeated season, Harbaugh has one. I think Urban Meyer might have had. I don't even know if Urban Meyer had an undefeated national championship season. I think his undefeated seasons, he had sanctions or whatever, so he couldn't get in there. Maybe Utah. Saban had one regular season, and then the COVID year he went undefeated. I think Dabo Swinney had one undefeated year. Did Kirby Smart have one undefeated year? Like it's tough to go undefeated and have a great team. I know Ryan Day hasn't had it, I'm pretty sure. And he only won one national championship. So yeah, and that was last year with 2 losses. This year, lost to Indiana. Could Cignetti do it this year? Are they the only remaining unbeaten left?
Yeah.
So that you only have one team that I wouldn't even think is a favorite to win it all. I'm glad Mendoza won the Heisman. I know the guy from Vanderbilt, people kept saying, well, he's better. He helped Vanderbilt get to 10 wins. Indiana is the worst program historically in Power 4. You have a guy that took them undefeated and won the Big Ten and knocked off the reigning champs. That's 100 million times better than what Vanderbilt did this year. I'm sorry, SEC fans. The stats are comparable, especially passing. I think Mendoza was ahead in every passing category. Maybe he didn't run as much. He won. When the game was on the line, he hit that dagger deep against Ohio State to keep the drive going. He hit the game winner against Penn State. Heisman moments. I don't know one Vanderbilt Heisman moment. Losing by 20 or whatever to Alabama. Okay. Right? Like, Florida State killed that Bama team. That's the one thing that stands out to me. I don't know how to treat the Alabama win or the Alabama loss because Alabama lost to Florida State poorly. So I don't know. I don't even know how Florida State is in terms of I know they turned a bowl down, right?
Yes.
So not in a bowl game. ACC down here, they're really fighting that. Did you see the schedule came out? I told you that
there's some unhappy campers.
Well, Florida State and Miami and the teams that had the crossover with the SEC, they only have an 8-game schedule. There's a couple other ones in there that I thought were weird, like Boston College. Is it because they play Notre Dame? Is that what it is?
It might be that they play Notre Dame, and it might be that they just get their head kicked in by most of the other teams in the conference.
But the ACC couldn't find a way around it. Like they couldn't just make it in 9 because you're getting into a different tiebreaker scenario here, which is even dumber.
They could, but it would be hard.
Because of the odd number of games? Is that what they said?
I don't know.
Because you're going to have teams that now are going to be 6-2 versus a team that's 7-2. Do they give it? Because if Florida State's 6-2 and they're up against, who knows, Wake Forest at 6-2 for the tiebreaker, and their overall record is like Duke this year, where they're 8-5 because they lost 3 out of conference games. They're really going to give it ahead of Florida State because they have the percentage head-to-head? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. You're taking your toughest teams out and making them play one less conference game. That's going to put them at a disadvantage to these jabroni teams that win 7 or 8 games. Like this year, everyone was 5-2 or 6-2 or whatever it was. Now those teams playing each other are playing another weak team. Awesome. They're beating up on another lower team like a Syracuse or something. Awesome. Now they're 7-2, and now they get the head tiebreaker over the best teams in the conference. They're really hoping that Clemson and Florida State and them can really go 7-1 at worst in the conference. And it's tough to go undefeated in conference. That's why I think what Indiana did was so impressive. And now they're rumored to be in on one of the top quarterback transfers. If that happens where Cignetti's able to bring in these senior or 5-year QBs while he's rolling, it's going to be tough to beat. But that's a different topic. Now the ACC, I don't know with their schedule. I'm disappointed on how that shook out. And even though all those other teams are now getting together and saying that if Notre Dame keeps the preferential treatment that leaked out, where if they're in the top 12, they automatically get a playoff bid, a lot of conferences like the Big 12 are saying that they aren't going to schedule Notre Dame anymore. And guess what? If Big 12 drops out and the Big 10 drops out, I think Notre Dame's commissioner said the only conference that was calling them was the SEC. I highly doubt the SEC is going to do a scheduling crossover with Notre Dame like the ACC. But could you imagine if they played 5 SEC games and 5 ACC games? Their schedule would probably be tougher than what it is right now, where they're just cherry picking teams that are lower like Arkansas, knowing that they're going to beat up on them. But I don't know if SEC is going to make that deal. How desperate do you think they are? I don't think they could swap. Like, I don't think they can join the SEC and do a 5-game crossover like they have for the ACC, because then you're in the same boat, right? I think the SEC is probably only calling them for football scheduling.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the case. And I think that there's enough crossover between the ACC and SEC that I think maybe the way the ACC is looking at it is, if you have a team that they're playing this other SEC scheduled team, that it's going to make their resume look better in terms of playoff seeding, that they're not worried as much about within the conference who wins the conference, because what's already been established is if you're winning your games in season, and I mean, honestly, I've said before, in the ACC, you have to win the conference. If you really want to be taken seriously on the national stage, you got to win the conference.
Well, that's why I'm thinking the SEC might be wondering, okay, we can lock Notre Dame out where we know 2 of the teams in our conference are going to beat them at least every year. So at best, you're hoping that, like this year, Notre Dame's sitting right there. They have 2 losses, one to an SEC team, one to Miami. Both are playoff teams. If the SEC has both losses, they're the ones putting them on Notre Dame. They're hoping that they can go ahead and use that to bump up their number of bids. Right? That's the only way that makes sense, is they're confident they can beat them. And by doing a conference agreement, the conference is going to be the one to help facilitate the scheduling, so that they're not playing a 5-game conference of like South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and like a bunch of teams like that, where they're just filling in and winning them all and being like, look, we played a half SEC schedule. Because you have problems right now where like Georgia hasn't played A&M because Georgia has too many protected rivals or whatever, and A&M's kind of like on their own, like they don't play each other. And they could very easily fix that with the scheduling. Like I saw someone said that like they did like one of the AI like schedule randomizer bots, and they came up with one for the Big Ten too, where you could do like rolling divisions, like we said, where you kind of keep a pod, but they were doing only like 3-team like rivalry sections or whatever they were calling them, where it was like for Michigan you had Ohio State and I think Michigan State or something. So like those 3 would play each other, and then you rotate through. And then like Penn State would be stuck with Nebraska or someone. Like they would just try to do it as like a scheduling thing. Or I actually think they might have had Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio State together. And then they had Michigan State, Penn State, and Nebraska or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Or no, they might. Yeah, I think they're I can't remember if Nebraska was with Iowa and Wisconsin or if Minnesota was with them, but it was something like that. But it actually worked out, and like there were no like errors. It said doing the schedules, and then like they dumped them online. I saw the spreadsheet, and it actually looked pretty good, because then you're able to keep more of like the regional thing. I think they went with 3 because of, I think it was 3, maybe it was 4, and that's why I'm having trouble remembering, because there's 4 West Coast teams, right? So it might have been 4 just to keep it easier that way, because you have UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. But then again, if you're doing like a mini pod like that, then you just have a Pac-12 light every year. But the way they did it was that, and that's why I think I'm still thinking it was 3, and I forget what the odd man teams out were. Maybe some of them just didn't have 3 in their scheduling section, because like Ohio State and them, if they're in with UCLA and USC that year, then that's a pretty good section. And then the division champion or the conference championship would always be against that other section, the other scheduling half, so that you might not have your top 2 teams playing in the conference championship game like they used to have, but it would at least be a different matchup, which is what they were trying to avoid. They didn't want to have a rematch in the conference championship game like we saw with the Big 12, where the rematch knocked BYU out. If the Big 12 had some type of scheduling rematch or scheduling thing where there were no rematches, there's a good chance 11-1 BYU is in. They missed a conference championship game. They would get compared head to head with Miami, Miami, guess what? They didn't make their conference championship game either. So at that point, what's the difference? I think BYU had more ranked wins. Miami had the higher ranked win against Notre Dame. That was it. But in that scenario, if the Big 12 had some type of scheduling matrix where the conference championship game was split every year and it was different, it was like rotating divisions, so it didn't really matter, because like who knows for the ACC what divisions are? Who cares? But I'm sure that if they had rotating divisions, it would have been a better championship matchup than Duke, Virginia. Because any of those other teams, like there were 5 teams that were tied that all had better records and chances at the playoffs, and instead their tiebreaker picked the worst team, Duke. And then, of course, they won it. Right? So now everyone's looking to see, how can my conference avoid that? And I really hope that the Big Ten considers it, because you want to keep the traditional rivals. Like, I want to play for the Jug. I don't really care about Michigan State, knowing that they're like trying to undermine our program right now. But whatever. That the Paul Bunyan Trophy, I like our guys doing the trophy pose. I think that's one of the best celebrations still. And I like to see it. And they seem to be a bigger disaster than our program right now. So let's go for it. They hired Pat Fitzgerald, dude. A guy fired for hazing. Right? Where they did the car wash thing where the players would get naked and do a car wash to each other. You can't make that up. You can't make that up. So I don't know what's going on, if Pat Fitzgerald knew that or what. Michigan State cleared him. He's their new coach. I don't even know if we talked about it. The funny thing is, I've seen like all those like articles that pop up on Twitter, like the best coaching hires. No one even mentions that Michigan State even hired a new coach. Like, I just happen to know that because of my Twitter feed is filled with like trolls and things like that against Michigan for whatever reason. So great. Pat Fitzgerald. I do know that Pat Fitzgerald wore blue to his like announcement where everyone else is wearing green. And they're like, why did he wear that blue suit? That's ridiculous. Looks like a Michigan blue. Then they were trying to like see if it was actually a Michigan type blue or if it was a different blue. Like, their fans are crazy, dude. That's what they were complaining about. He wore the wrong color suit to his like coaching signing thing. It wasn't a Northwestern one because Northwestern's purple. So I know for a fact it was a shade of blue. They broke it down for me. Great work on Twitter. But yeah, I think that's a college update, right? Navy beat Army. Washington beat the crap out of Boise State, which kind of hurts going into next year because Boise State were they their champ? You have like the 6th Big Ten team beat the crap out of the Mountain West champ. That's not a good look. And I am still for auto bids to the playoffs. That should have been Indiana smacking them around, getting a warm-up week for the playoffs. Right? If that's the worst conference champ, that should have been who Indiana's beating up. First week of the playoffs. Not getting a bye and potentially being rusty and having to play Alabama or Oklahoma. But I want to talk to some NFL real quick, and then we'll get it back into, I'll probably end with the coaching search Michigan stuff that I've been hearing. But NFL, finally, Chiefs are out. Mahomes goes down. Now there's pressure to get Kelsey to retire so he can go and be Taylor Swift's bouncer / boyfriend / husband on the tour / podcaster, right? They podcast together with his brother. So I really think this has to be Josh Allen's year. We talked about it last week. I think it was last week. Because I laid out all the scenarios, right? You told me not to do math on the show last week. And so I kind of just let it play out. But watching Buffalo come back against New England, at first I was infuriated with their play calling. Right? I had one of their tight ends, the guy that didn't score any touchdowns in fantasy. And they just kept running the ball and then punting and letting the Patriots score. And I thought, this is like watching a high school coach know that he's outmatched, just trying to eat clock. And then they were like, you know what? Now we're going to turn it on and we're going to let Josh Allen run. He's like going to get beat up. And I'm thinking, man, this guy's going to get hurt. Why did you wait so long before you flipped the switch? They get the win. And now Mahomes is out. The playoff quarterback situation in the AFC is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be potentially Josh Allen, either Lamar or Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence. I almost called him Taylor Swift. Oh my gosh. Then you're going to have Bo Nix, dude. And then either Herbert, CJ Stroud, or 100-year-old Phillip Rivers. Those are the quarterbacks that are available right now. If Josh Allen should easily be the best of those right now, you have two ancient dudes, Aaron Rodgers and Phillip Rivers. No, you should be able to beat them in a playoff game. I don't care. Lamar, this is your time too, but you've been playing horrible. I know because you're my fantasy quarterback, and I've been starting you out of spite. I could start CJ Stroud. I might start Stroud. I don't know. He went off on Arizona last week, and I thought, man, Lamar has to have a good game. They have to win. So I've been playing him because I'm thinking he has to win. They're playing the Patriots. I don't know how he's going to do against the Patriots D. I feel like the Patriots are going to go ahead and they have to win. Like if they want the number 1 seed, they have to win. The Patriots can't lose again. They're 1 game behind Denver now. And I don't know what the tiebreaker is. I'm assuming that they would have to win out and Denver would have to lose. But Denver has to play the Chargers. So there's at least 1 game. They play the Chiefs, which is not going to have Mahomes. I'm thinking Broncos win that one. So it comes down to they're playing the Jags, and then they have the Chargers last game of the year. The Chargers, because of where they are in the wild card, they're fighting the Bills and the Texans right now for a wild card spot. New England has to win because they could potentially fall from being close to a 1 seed all the way down to a wild card spot if the Bills can pass them up. So we have a lot of movement in the AFC, but I think if you're Josh Allen, you have to be licking your chops, saying, I don't care what the rest of my team is. I know we're not strong. When the playoffs come around, if you want to be a quarterback that people remember and not some guy talking like Dan Fouts on like the TV broadcast, people are like, who the heck's Dan Fouts? Like that's the level Josh Allen's going to get to, where if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, I don't even know if he's going to reach Marino levels because he hasn't even played for a Super Bowl. There's unless he plays for 100 years, he's going to be a forgettable guy where people are like, yeah, I remember people thinking he was pretty good. He was pretty good back then. But you can't just say I played against Mahomes, right?
But the crazy thing is, I would say that he's a better quarterback than Burrow.
Burrow played for a Super Bowl, though. And he's been hurt. And Burrow could be done. He looks broken, dude. You get injured too many times. I think Josh Allen, and that's why I said it's not just about him making and playing for a Super Bowl. It's just that he gets passed up by a guy like Burrow. I'm glad you brought him up. Because even whenever Mahomes doesn't make the Super Bowl, other guys are making it, and Josh Allen's not able to get there. Heck, even Baker Mayfield was in the AFC Championship game with the Browns. You can't have you be the guy and then just not be there. I think it's the same with the Lions right now on the NFC side, where you have Goff. I've never been high on Goff. They're in a real situation where they might not be in the playoffs. And I heard on sports radio this morning where they were saying hey, we could have a playoff without Lamar and Goff and Mahomes and someone else. And I'm like, why are you putting Goff in that situation? Right? I would never be like, yeah, Goff's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But they almost have to win out. You have Green Bay battling, and they have that weird tie with the Cowboys. I don't know how the Cowboys fell apart, honestly. Oh, Dak was the other quarterback they mentioned. So I was like, how are you putting Dak and Goff in a situation where you're talking about Mahomes and Lamar? Right? There's a huge divide there. like the Grand Canyon big. But even the Bucks. How are the Bucks losing when all they have to do is clinch? You're playing the Falcons, dude. The Falcons, horrible team. They were a 4-win team coming in. and you choke. And it looked like Mike Evans was going to cry out there. He looked like he was broken when they hit that game-winning field goal, I think is what it was, to win. Because I thought, man, all the Bucs have to do was do anything. Do anything and win the game, and then you're in the playoffs. Now the Carolina Panthers have life. They're tied, dude. Tied for the division. All they have to do, and they play each other twice. So we now have 2 hardcore NFC South games where the Panthers play Bucs, Seahawks, Bucs. Right? Doesn't matter what happens in the other game if they sweep them. If Carolina sweeps the Bucs, they're in. The Bucs have the Dolphins in between. The Seahawks are definitely the tougher matchup. Dolphins are out, so it comes down to the Panthers. You have to sweep them. Sweep the Bucs, and you're in the playoffs. And the Bucs just lost to the Falcons, so what's the tiebreaker for the division? I think they have it right now. Best win percentage in common games, because I think they're both tied. And of course, yeah, they are. And so they're playing each other. So the conference won't really matter. And if you split, it's going to be the same. Tiebreaker will probably go to the Bucs. So you have to just beat them twice, or hope they lose to the Dolphins and you catch up another win and split. I never would have guessed Panthers wouldn't be in that situation, though. Same with like the Bears. Bears are still sticking around. Seattle and the Rams, they're playing this week. That is for the 1 seed. They only play once, though. Seahawks play the Panthers, like I mentioned, then the Niners. So, Seahawks defense, man, I think I'm finally in fantasy. I think I have to sit them down. My man, I have too many guys injured, by the way. I don't know how I keep winning. Devontae Adams is down. Adunze's been out. And now, what's my Packers guy? I want to say Watkins, but I know that's not his name. He got hurt. And so I'm looking for any offense from my wide receivers. I have 3 dudes down. Watson. What did I say? Watkins? I was close. And then Tucker Kraft, of course, my tight end. So I'm looking at a situation where I might have to play 4 running backs, which in our league is like, you might as well just throw in the towel at that point. I'm playing a team that had Mahomes, though. So if I can get through this week and get my guys healthy, I have a chance in the Final 4. I could play you, though. Your team went crazy last week, so you're ready for a 60-point game this week, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It was like, well, I'm glad that my Super Bowl was this week. Actually, the irony was that I had Kyle Pitts, and I was like, I wonder how we did on the Thursday night game. I only watched a little bit of it, and I always like checking Friday morning to be like, where are we starting at? Like, who had a good game? Like, I got a lot of points already. I'm like, how many people did I have playing last night? I was like, oh, that's all Kyle Pitts. I was like, well, I should be in good shape. And then as the games were playing out, like the early Sunday game, none of my running backs were getting the ball, none of my receivers. I was like, I'm gonna end up with like 60 points and just have all of them be from my tight end that I hated playing.
Well, me and you were the 2 highest scoring teams, so I figured it's only right if we both have another high scoring week and then we play in the championship and the final score is like 65 to like 64. And everyone else is so mad.
Just ended in a tie.
Because we almost had a game end in a tie. I was getting nervous because I'm like, what's the tiebreaker situation here? I don't know. I'm like going through my list of like, great, here's a tie. Because the way since the NFL changed the bye week thing, where the bye week stretches to like week 14 now, we have a couple of teams that you played like 3 times, right? So there's a real scenario where one of the tiebreakers this year for our league was a team that if they would have tied in total points and had the same record, they also split head to head. I was going to have to manually calculate those 2 games and see who scored the most points. I think was going to be my final tiebreaker. And then they ended up, one of the teams ended up getting upset, and I was like, thank God I didn't have to like explain that to the team. Like, this is how I decided who was making the last playoff spot, right? Like I'm going down. I'm like the ACC here. I'm like on my third tiebreaker. I'm ready to flip a coin for you two dudes. But that's what I was thinking. Like, man, these guys are going to tie. You took out the hottest team. That sometimes is just about getting hot. I played another hot team and they didn't show up. I was predicted to lose until the Cowboys. Cowboys getting upset helped my fantasy team win, and then I was sitting good. And I thought, man, I'm going to beat this guy 3 times this year. I thought that's like impossible. I'm going to lose. I'm going to beat him twice and then lose in the playoffs, right? That's normally what happens. But nope, got all 3. Now I just got to stay alive. We're both predicted, me and the guy I'm playing, to be low scoring this week because he loses Mahomes. And then I don't know who's playing on my team. I think the thing that hurts me is the Rams play Thursday night and Devontae Adams, I don't think is coming back. And that's a big time matchup too. That's the Seahawks. So do I even play the Seahawks defense or do I try to get a better defense or a different defense? They're the number 1 scoring. So I could just ride it out knowing that I won the division and just say like, who cares if I win the entire thing this year? I'm already the top gun, right? Do I need to win? Both my number 1 players, my kicker and my defense, are both Seattle guys. They're number 1 at their position. The rest of them, I have a lot of top 10 guys. Williams and Devontae Adams are both top 10. And I had 4 guys in that game on Thursday playing each other. So I would know by the end of Thursday if I'm going to win, probably. Unless miracles happen. I don't even have any Monday nighters, though. Although, no, there is a Monday night game. I've been sitting on Brian Robertson Jr. for when Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. He never got hurt this year. I sat on him all year, bro. I never got to call him in. He never got the bullpen call. Well, Tracy, the Giants guy I picked up, I told you I haven't been playing him. And finally, I thought, you know what? I don't trust JJ, my man McCarthy. He hasn't been feeding Aaron Jones. I got to go with Tracy, and he scored 2 touchdowns. Would it have mattered if I would have stuck with Jones? Like, no, I still would have got the win because the rest of my guys balled out. But it made me feel a lot better when he was out there, and now I'm like, I don't know what to do. Pollard's been having a good game too, and I had started him for a while. Now he's on my bench, and now he's playing Kansas City, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to play him, right? Because Kansas City's not going to have their star quarterback. Tennessee's probably might have the lead. They'll be running the ball a lot, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those things where fantasy, I'm gonna put this much thought into it, and then it's not going to matter. My team will score like 80 points. Get blown out by 60. Do you have anything else for the NFL you want to talk about?
No.
Anything else you want to talk about before I wrap up with the Michigan quarterback talk, the coaching search stuff?
We got the Division II championships coming up this weekend. I think it's an interesting matchup because you have Ferris State, who has Tony Anise coaching. They're a shotgun triple option school going up against Harding, who's old school under center triple option. So I know that you haven't been following Harding at all this year, but they're the team that in their one playoff game rushed the ball like 70 times. And then they've like set pretty much every record as far as like rushing yards in a game. It's like 600 some yards, just ground and pound. So should be a bloodbath.
Well, if they need a new offensive line coach, I know a guy that'll be available once he gets out of jail.
Pew pew.
I can put in a good word. The other thing I was going to talk about, NC State soccer made it to the national championship, which was down here. I told you I was going to try to go to the game. It was 20 degrees out. And I thought, nah, that's not for me. Not for me. And then I watched, and I'm glad I watched at home because they went to overtime against Washington. Washington scores the goal to win, but their guy was offsides, right? So they go to the monitor and they said, well, it's a judgment call. We're just going to let it stand, and that's the national championship. And I thought that's the most NC State way to lose a game, where it's like, no, we reviewed it because we know there's a penalty, but we're going to let it up to the guy on the field. And like he's in the hood, right? Like, why? Why not have it in the booth, right? I know they don't broadcast so much soccer, but the other guy comes in and he whispers in his ear, and I told the people I'm watching with, like, he just whispered in, that's $2 million right there if you just call it. And they just like pay the guy off right there. And he's like, you know what? Let's keep it. Let's wrap this baby up. Because it's 20 degrees. He doesn't want to play extra overtime. Right? And they had already celebrated and had the thing before they buzzed it in. That's how poor. I don't think it was the ACC. It was probably like the NCAA, whoever was doing the thing. Like, that's how poor it was. Washington celebrating, and they buzzed it in like, no, there's a potential penalty on the play. If you're buzzing it in, just call it off. They do it in hockey, right? They had the still. The guy made a play towards the ball. That's the FIFA rule. I looked it up. He made a play towards the ball. If he had ran the other way or just stood there, then they could have said judgment call. But because he actually ran in and blocked a defender, it was a cut and dry, I think, that it should have been a penalty. And I feel bad for NC State. Could they still have lost? Yes. But that's the entire point. Why have the penalty or the rule if you can just decide not to call it? That's what drives me nuts with basketball. Like watching Michigan play, been killing everybody, right? But I watched, like, Maryland's guy got 2 technicals for like talking trash. And I'm like, let him in. I think they ejected him because he was talking trash and they had 2 technicals, but I didn't see him. Like, the one was kind of like a push. I get that maybe. If that was the same guy, I can't remember now because it was a Saturday night game. And then, of course, everything was going on. So who knows? But I wonder, like, for some of these, the officials have too much power and there's too much judgment calls. And that's why even with football, I'd rather them not call any penalties. I know Ohio State's like complaining, like, we played in the Big Ten Championship. There was like no penalties in that game. You're telling me they didn't hold us at any time? It's like, no, bro, I don't want to see a penalty fest. Let him play. If you're not calling holding on either team, then it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Now, if it's egregious, yeah, call it. But no, that's my thing. Real quick on the coaching search. I told you I heard it's down to 3 coaches. There's been 2 that haven't signed extensions to keep an eye on. Kalen DeBoer, I know he's kind of came out and said that he is not interested in looking or whatever. He said he plans to be there. You know how many coaches say they plan to be there the next year? So keep an eye on that. That's another thing with Michigan's coaching timeline. I hear a lot of Michigan fans telling me it's bad. We haven't signed a coach yet. What do you think, they magically just sign a coach? I would rather wait because there are rumors that Minter, Michigan's old defensive coordinator, is interested. He would be a great hire, I think. He's not available right now. The Chargers are in the middle of a playoff hunt. I don't think he's going to sell out Harbaugh. So if you want to hire a coach, you might be taking someone lesser than someone that's interested. I don't know what the 3 coaches are. The other one is clearly Dillingham, right, from Arizona State. He didn't sign the extension. He pushed his bowl practice back. Did you see that? He said that he wanted to shoot hoops or something. Yeah, I'm sure. Matt, you're like going into work. Could you imagine? You're like, hey, you know what? We're going to push back our morning meeting. I want to shoot some hoops. Right. I know he's an Arizona State guy through and through. That's all I know about him. I know he's like a player's guy. He's young. And I also know he's short for some reason. Someone posted like, it was like a synopsis of him. It's like, how tall is he? And it's like, he's actually 5'6", but people think he's actually 6 foot tall because of he's on TV. And I'm like, no, they don't. Like, if you see him stand next to a person, you just don't assume that they're 6 foot tall because they're on TV. Like, that makes no sense, right?
I did see him on TV.
he only recruits guys like Kyler Murray's height, and they all look the same. And then they get in the line.
They do that on purpose so that he feels better about himself.
Yeah. What would he do it with our linemen? Our liner is gigantic. They wouldn't even see him out on the field. He'd be like, guys, get down on a knee. Get down on a knee. So I thought that was weird that that's popping up. The third candidate, did you see Whittingham quit?
Yes.
So Kyle Whittingham just steps down, and then I heard that he's interested in the Michigan job, and he's ready to lock in for 5 to 7 more years. So don't worry about his age. And that he wants to know there would be no issues because he was the one that stepped down. He didn't get fired for anything. I'm like, okay. So he clearly just stepped down to throw his name in the ring, right? He thought, well, I'm gonna just retire soon. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. And there's a chance that it could work out. I could get the Michigan job. Because right now, with the waiting thing, I know a lot of administrators, like, they're scared that if Alabama keeps winning, DeBoer's not going to leave Alabama. They lose to Oklahoma, there's a good chance that he's available. Alabama's going to be kind of mad at him, whatever. They didn't win the SEC, even though they played for it. Last year, they lost to Michigan. That's my worry. Like, if they are interviewing Jed Fish and DeBoer, Sherrone beat both those guys, and he wasn't even into the game, really. He's texting girls at the game. So not only is he beating the guys that we're going to hire, but he wasn't even putting his full effort in. And then, like, DeBoer gets killed by Alabama. That's a red flag to me. I know he's a great coach and whatever, and there could be anything going on, but that's still a pretty bad beating. I know Florida State didn't end up being good, and you don't know that at the first game of the year, but you would hope that he has them ready to play. I'm not saying I'm against him. That's who I had a gut feeling that we were going to hire, and I really think that's who Michigan's still waiting on, whether people are putting out fake feelers. I saw someone was saying, like, Manny Diaz is interested. Like, yeah, I know he is. I'm interested, right? They want me to come. Sherrone had, 2 years texting girls, inviting him to a game, giving him free tickets. That's a good deal, bro. So, I don't know. Those are the guys. Those would be the three right now. DeBoer, Dillingham, and I would probably say Whittingham, right? I don't know. Maybe the guys with Ingham names.
I would say that it's likely at this point a two-horse race between DeBoer and Dillingham. I feel like that's totally a scenario where Michigan falls in crap and comes out smelling like a rose, because it's unfortunate what happened to Moore. But I also didn't think that he was that sterling of a coach to begin with. I thought he was handed a program that Harbaugh had built into place. And even with the wins and stuff that he had while Harbaugh was serving his suspension, it was like, you're here as the figurehead. Don't crash the car. And he did, like, the most crazy, just complete nosedive into the side of a mountain that you could possibly do.
He's already driving saying, Coach, brakes are out. Brakes are out already.
Like, he really had probably one of the easiest jobs, because all he had to do, like, everything was set up. He was there, like, as Harbaugh was building it. So, like, he knew exactly how the flow was supposed to go.
Dude, he landed a number 6 recruiting class.
Yeah. And that was not him, because everything was showing he was just messaging OnlyFans model.
But maybe that's why, bro. Maybe that directly, where he's the player's like, man, Coach really loves coming out to see me. But he's like meeting up with girls in the player's hometown, right? I don't know. It's weird because, like you said, he didn't look like he was the greatest coach, but now his mind wasn't even in there. And for whatever reason, we were winning, right? I don't care what the coach looks like if you're winning. And one game away. Now, if he was more locked in and he beats USC or Oklahoma this year, same boat, then you really don't need the Ohio State win, and there's a good chance you're probably in the playoff, especially if you were to beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not going to make the playoffs, and Alabama that beat Oklahoma already beat Alabama. That's why the rematch is kind of weird. If DeBoer loses them twice, you think Alabama's going to be mad. They're not even offering him an extension. I saw their NIL thing put out a list, or like whatever their thing, saying like, hey, we're invested in DeBoer. It's like, you're not. We know you're not. Like, right? Because that's where, like you said, it's almost like a perfect storm where DeBoer's a great coach. He took Washington to the national championship. You can't discount that. he could get into a situation where he comes in to Alabama, doesn't work out, not a culture fit, and he gets a rescue flare shot off. He just gets picked up, and he goes and coaches Bryce Underwood next year. He's like, all right, yep, here I am. I had Michael Penix drafted the top of the draft, right? I don't remember where he was drafted. But like, yeah, I had my top. I'm pretty sure he was in the top 10. I'm ready to work, baby. He's from the Midwest. He likes it up there. And by all accounts, he was interested in the Penn State job. He was the guy that I heard from the Penn State guys, where they said that because I always said, like, why would he be talking to Penn State? He was supposedly the candidate that knew that the Michigan job was supposed to open. You can believe me, not do whatever you want, but the fact that he didn't sign an extension and then Dillingham didn't sign an extension and he's been moving practices around, you're probably right. If DeBoer doesn't take it or he shoots him down, I think we're going to have to wait till the game's on Friday. I think Michigan makes a hire probably next week. I don't think they wait for Minter. I don't think they settle for Whittingham. I think they're either going to get Dillingham or DeBoer, depending on what that game is. So that's it. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.